I'm Iris Tao in for Steve Lance tonight. President Trump is issuing a new deadline for Russia to end its war with Ukraine. The announcement comes during Trump's high-profile meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and follows what may be Trump's biggest trade deal yet, slashing tariffs with the EU and securing hundreds of billions in energy and defense purchases. NTD's Mario Otsu has more from the White House.
There's no reason in waiting. We just don't see any progress being made.
President Trump setting a new deadline of 10 to 12 days for Russia to end the war with Ukraine or face sanctions and secondary tariffs. This comes just 2 weeks after the president imposed a 50-day deadline on Russia to make a peace deal, threatening to punish countries trading with Russia with a 100% tariff.
We thought we had that settled numerous times, and then President Putin goes out and starts launching rockets into some city like Kiev and kills a lot of people in a nursing home or whatever. Yep. I'm disappointed in President Putin.
Trump says he'll revise the deadline within the next day. Meanwhile, on trade.
And it's a big deal. It's a huge deal. So again, congratulations and many thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
President Trump striking his biggest deal yet with the EU on Sunday. The deal reduces the threatened 30% tariff on most European goods to 15% and includes a 0% tariff on American exports. The EU also agrees to buy $750 billion in U.S. energy, invest another $600 billion in the U.S., and buy more American military equipment. Across the Atlantic, President Trump's top trade officials met with their Chinese counterparts today in Stockholm. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says a goal includes extension of the 90-day trade truce agreed on in May. And here at home, the Trump administration on Monday issued new guidance requiring federal agencies to protect religious expression in the workplace. Specifically, it allows federal workers to pray in groups while off duty, invite coworkers to church, and display Bibles, crucifixes, or mezuzahs on their desks without fear of retaliation. The president talking about the administration's efforts in restoring traditional values and faith at a White House faith gathering in February.
So there could be nothing more beautiful than for us to gather in this majestic place. It is majestic, and reaffirm that America is and will always be one nation under God. At every stage of the American story, our country has drawn hope and courage and inspiration from our trust in the Almighty. Deep in the soul of every patriot is the knowledge that God has a special plan and a glorious mission for America.
The latest guidance comes after the president signed an executive order eradicating anti-Christian bias in February and an EO establishing the Religious Liberty Commission in May. Reporting from the White House, Mario Otsu, NTD News.
To discuss the trade deal with the EU, we're joined live right now by Ed Butowski. He's a managing partner of Chapwood Investments. Ed, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So first, President Trump's new trade deal with the EU imposes a 15% tariff on about 2/3 of European goods like cars, chips, and pharmaceuticals. He has threatened a 30% tariff before, now it's coming down. How do you see this impacting Americans when it comes to, for example, stock performance as well as investors' portfolios?
I think the American, generally the investing public is going to be able to exhale now because they were threatening to do 30%. Now it's down to 15%, which is still up from 2.5%. So it's still a big increase. And, the important thing to remember is that the people who are paying this tariff are not the countries. So it's not the European community that's paying it. It's the companies that are importing the goods from Europe that are paying these tariffs. So, it's not as though Germany is writing a check to the United States. It's the company that's doing the importing of the German goods that have to pay the tariff to the U.S. government. And that's something that's very misunderstood about tariffs. People normally think that there's a automatic, country is going to be paying that, and it's not the case.
And speaking of the impact of such tariffs, which you mentioned are being paid by those companies and exporters, as there are some concerns about the deal potentially raising prices for cars and other imported European products. Now it's up to 15%. What should Americans expect when it comes to inflation and spending power?
Well, I'll tell you, the inflation question is something that has to be played out because right now you're not seeing any inflationary pressure because a lot of these tariffs have not been put into place yet. So there hasn't been any kind of residual impact on inflation at this point. In fact, you're seeing the inflation numbers kind of hold steady. But that is the big fear is that prices are going to go higher, and they probably will at some point. Then the question is, are the U.S. citizens willing to pay more for these imports or not? And that's a really great question, and that's only going to be played out as we go forward into 2025 and then into 2026.
And Ed, in addition to the tariff portion of this deal here, the U.S. also agreed to buy hundreds of billions of dollars worth of U.S. natural gas, oil, and nuclear fuel to replace Russian supplies. As an investment expert here, what impact do you think this will have on the U.S. energy market as well as related stocks?
Well, I think that you have to look at the U.S. energy market as the world market because the U.S. energy market doesn't stand by itself. And there's going to be, a demand on U.S. energy, and that's going to probably push U.S. energy prices higher, as a microcosm. But there's a much bigger picture here. I mean, we have, I don't know the exact number, but an incredible amount of energy that is produced every single day by the U.S. And that's going to be, basically taken over by the European community. So there's going to be a lot of replacement from the Russian oil to the U.S. oil, but I don't believe that that's going to have a major impact by itself on prices. I think prices are going to be muted a little bit because of the worldwide demand.
And now turning to China, we know that China as well as the U.S. are talking right now in Stockholm to extend the current tariff truce ahead of the August 12th deadline. What's your assessment on a potential deal here between the two countries and any measures needed by the U.S. to protect American companies and consumers from China's long-term unfair trade practices?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, this is a real tricky one because the people out there right now believe that China has a buying problem, that their consumer is not out there buying enough because they don't have a lot of money, and the United States wants to export a lot to China. So this is one where you have to look at the headlines and try to dissect what is real and what isn't real. And I don't know enough about China to know if the people in China have enough money to be buying the goods and services from the United States. But my instincts are that the Chinese government is not being very honest with people just because they never are, and that China is going to be in a handicapped position because their people don't have a lot of money to be buying things. I think the U.S. has the upper hand on this, and I think the U.S. is going to come out very successfully.
Well, we certainly have heard President Trump talking about how much China relies on exports to the U.S. and its potential impact on the Chinese economy if tariffs remain high. Ed Butowski, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate your insights here. Humanitarian and entering the Gaza Strip appears to be increasing amid reports of starvation in the territory. Meanwhile, Israel says that a viral photo of a child who appears to be starving actually depicts a 5-year-old who has the genetic disease. NTD's Jason Perry has the story.
Over the weekend, a spokesperson for the Israel Defense Forces gave this message on the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip.
I cannot emphasize enough. Israel is not blocking humanitarian aid. We are facilitating its entry every single day.
And he said that in the past week, international aid organizations collected over 600 truckloads of aid inside the Gaza Strip. This comes as Israeli forces have begun daily 10-hour pauses in fighting in certain parts of the Gaza Strip in support of humanitarian aid deliveries. At the same time, Israel, along with the United Arab Emirates and Jordan, have also been airdropping humanitarian aid throughout the territory. But many are saying it's still not enough, including Vice President JD Vance.
I don't know if you've all seen these images. You've got some really heartbreaking cases. You've got little kids who are clearly starving to death.
But are they really images of starving children? Some are questioning why the adults near the children look healthy while the children do not. On Monday, Israel said that a picture went viral of a child, 5-year-old Osama al-Rakab, purportedly as evidence that Israel is starving children, while in actuality, the child has a genetic disease. In a post on X, Israel said that they've coordinated Osama's exit from Gaza with his mother and brother, and that he is now receiving treatment in Italy. President Trump also commented on images coming from the Gaza Strip.
Some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it. And you can't fake that. So we're going to be even more involved. We're going to set up food centers, and we're going to do it in conjunction with some very good people.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu shared his thoughts on the situation.
Israel is presented as though we are applying a campaign of starvation in Gaza. What a bold-faced lie. There is no policy of starvation in Gaza, and there is no starvation in Gaza. We enable humanitarian aid throughout the duration of the war to enter Gaza, otherwise there would be no Gazans.
Israel did previously block humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip from March until May for what they said was to pressure Hamas to release the hostages. Israel also accused Hamas of stealing aid to fund its operations. Jason Perry, NTD News.
A busy week for Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. After spending a week touring Colorado and Idaho, he participated in a 2025 National Governors Association meeting over the weekend. NTD correspondent Jason Blair now joins us live in studio. Jason, what's the Health Secretary been up to?
Yeah, so Kennedy's been pretty busy, as you said. He's been around in Colorado and Idaho, kind of advancing his MAHA agenda, meeting with different groups there, including Governor Little of Idaho, basically talking about, MAHA things, what the state's doing in the MAHA world and implementing certain things. So Governor Little did sign a proclamation. One of those things is advancing basically their plan to eliminate sugary drinks as well as candy from the state's SNAP program, as well as also restrict cell phone use in schools. And I do have a couple of clips actually from them on their trip over there. Let me play those for you now.
For freedom, if you want to drink a Coke, you ought to be able to do it. But the American taxpayer should not be paying for it. Today, 38% of teens are pre-diabetic or diabetic. I think it's 18% of the food stamp program when it goes to candies or sodas. 10% go to sugar sodas. And so we're poisoning the poorest Americans, giving them diabetes, and then we're paying for it with Medicaid in the long run.
We recognize the crisis that exists at the national level and at the state level, so it's incumbent that we partner with the federal government to make sure that all the programs that are there increase the health of the entire population.
So Secretary Kennedy was also at the National Governors Association 2025 annual meeting. He did participate in a fireside chat with them. He did talk about a few things. I do have a couple of clips from that as well, some highlights. In this first one, he just gave a stat about how in California, a recent study showed that 1 in 12 boys are diagnosed with autism. Let me play these clips for you right now.
This is an apocalypse. And the same is true, that's just two diseases, diabetes and autism. And then you look at there's hundreds and hundreds of autoimmune diseases that started around 1989. I went on a long hike with Dr. Oz this morning. He showed me a data point of a study that they just finished that showed that if you could get every American to do a 15-minute walk a day, it would save the country $150 billion.
So during these discussions, Kennedy basically made the MAHA case to all these governors around. He did say that there are already a few handful of states that are participating in implementing their own agendas, but he really made his case to the rest of them, and hopefully we'll see some more developments in that world and have some updates.
And Jason, we know that Secretary Kennedy also announced today that he's working to change a long-time government program that compensates for vaccine injuries. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so Kennedy just announced that he's working with Attorney General Pam Bondi He wants to change like you said, a long-term vaccine injury compensation program. He said that this, according to him, this program no longer achieves, quote, the congressional intent it originally had. Kennedy said, quote, the VICP has devolved into a morass of inefficiency, favoritism, and outright corruption as government lawyers and the special masters who serve as vaccine court judges prioritize the solvency of the HHS trust fund over their duty to compensate victims. So this program is a government program that's been in operation since 1988, and basically if someone believes they have a vaccine injury, they can go ahead and submit a petition for possible compensation. And the program says that this is basically kind of like an alternative to a lawsuit. To give a better idea, they describe the reason why this program was made, quote, after lawsuits against vaccine companies and healthcare providers threatened to cause vaccine shortages and reduce U.S. vaccination rates, which could have caused a resurgence of vaccine preventable diseases. So Kennedy just announced that he's working on changing that. So maybe we'll have some more developments to report on soon.
Thanks for the update, Jason.